welcome to my channel. And today, before we proceed, I wanted to look at this news where American ambassador to Ghana was threatening Ghana in a speech, and also look at the analytics of Ghana and America business relationship. So let's go.
Ghana's parliament is considering a bill that would curtail the human rights of the LGBT community, their families, allies, and quite frankly, all Ghanaians. Everybody has opinions about the issue, and I respect those opinions very much, even if I disagree with them. But very few people have read the bill. I think very few people understand that the reality is that the bill undermines the basic free speech rights that Ghanaians otherwise enjoy. The goal of the bill, the drafters are not shy about advertising, is to make Ghana hostile not only to LGBT people, but to anyone who even sympathizes with them. It seeks to make illegal all discussion and all media that even mentions LGBT issues. So journalists would be arrested, landlords would be arrested, mothers and fathers could be arrested. If passed, the bill will make it harder for you not only to recruit and hire the best people from overseas, but it will marginalize educated and hardworking Ghanaians by making it clear that they are unwelcome. I have no doubt that such legislation would have a chilling effect on Ghana as an investment destination. Companies have already talked to me about American consumers being unwilling to buy things that are made in a country with such repressive legislation. It'll make it harder for me to sell Ghana as an investment and trade destination. So the legislation, in addition to undermining public health and public order, would reduce Forex inflows, cut into your bottom line, and reduce your workforce options. Not something Ghana's suffering business environment needs now.
In other words, if this is passed by Parliament, it's going to have a devastating economic impact on an already suffering economy. And she used those words, suffering, right? Let me bullet for you what you just heard there. One, legislation will reduce Forex inflows, reduce the workforce options. It will make Ghana hostile, not only to the LGBTQ people, but to anyone sympathizing with them. And she says the bill will also make discussions relating to it illegal, undermine free speech, but it is the economic implications that we are paying attention to that she highlights. It will affect, he says, Ghana as an investment destination. And then she warns that American consumers have told her that they will not be buying goods from companies that do business in countries that have such repressive legislation. And so for her, this bill, if it's passed, is going to be repressive, and then American consumers will reject goods coming from Ghana. She also says it will make it harder for you to recruit and hire because, of course, if you want the best, you possibly want to go to the US and bring them in. She says that is going to be difficult for Ghanaian businesses to do. Best people from overseas, they won't come because, again, she believes we have a repressive legislation that criminalizes LGBTQ. And then she also talks about it to make it harder. Now, she's talking about herself. She is already laying the foundations, warning us what will happen, that the U.S. will no longer sell Ghana, or will make it more difficult for Ghana, for the U.S. to sell Ghana as an investment and trade destination. Those are pretty serious points that she lays out for us. And for the very first time in a long time, she lays out the consequences in black and white. Okay, let's look at what the facts tell us. How much will we lose if anything she says here should materialize? We started tracking our trade relationship with the U.S. And this is according to the United States Census Bureau, the OEC, but also the United States Trade Representative. And they put together the data, right? And if you look at the data, we are exporting quite a bit to the United States. As in fact, 2022, the last time data is available, $2.8 billion worth of goods we exported to the United States. So that's good money coming in. We need that Forex for our economy. 2021, 1.7 billion. If you come to 2020, and this is the COVID years, $760 million worth of goods that we exported. Now, how does this compare to what we import from the US? And if you look at that, again, from the same sources, we wanted to check all of them to make sure that we have the accurate picture. You begin to see, again, go back to 2022, we are importing from the US an estimated $975 million worth of goods in terms of goods and services coming in from the US. And if you go to 2021, again, 957. Now, that tells you a story, right? That tells you a story that I want to show you here, because you begin to see that we actually have a trade surplus with the United States. In other words, as you've seen already, we are exporting more to the US than we are importing. So, as she says that, if what she says actually materializes, she is warning us that American consumers will be rejecting what we're exporting to them. This $2.76 billion worth of goods that we are exporting to them, she says, American consumers will be rejecting. Keeping them honest, we'll come to that pretty shortly. Is that really the case for other countries the US trades with that have far more draconian legislation against LGBTQ? We'll see, so that we can put it in proper context. But that's the warning from her. If you look at what the stats tell us and what the numbers are telling us in terms of our trade relationship. Now, if again look at a country like Uganda, we try to also bring in what other African countries have done and what the consequences were for them. Uganda, tracking what they did when it comes to anti-LGBTQ laws. In February 2014, they activated this particular bill. In June 2014, US then imposes the sanctions on them right after they did so. And then in March 2023, the new bill on the LGBTQ becomes law, right? Now, that was important. They didn't back off, although for a period that became an issue for them. And the consequences were very clear. The US then funds for the programs were withdrawn. They had the military sponsorship packages that again were cancelled. And as we know, they were then forced to annul the anti-homosexual act at some point. But they came back very strongly because they believed that that's what they had to do. It represents their values as a country. And so they stuck to it. And then if you begin to then expand on the impact, for example, on the trade relationship between Uganda and the United States, this is the picture that emerges. You begin to see how in 2014, when the law was first enacted, you look at the blue line here talking about the imports, and then you look at the red line talking about the exports. You will see that in their case it's a bit different, right? They were obviously importing far more than they were exporting. So they have a trade deficit with the United States there. But then everything else began to go down and began to climb back again. But by the time that they come to 2022, as you can see, it's neck and neck thereabout. But did it have an impact there? You may say then, of course, because if you look at the year before 2013, they were still importing quite significant amount of goods and services from the US. So in their case, you will see that they will say, well, look, in effect, you're benefiting off us. We're buying a lot from you. So we really don't need you in this particular circumstance. And as it plays out later in the year, later down the line, 2022, you see the picture there. And I want to do the comparison for you as you see here in terms of how it pans out in the trade relationship there. Let's just pay attention to see the drop. As of the timing in March, and this is just the year of 2023 when they reactivated it. This was big international news. And this is the 2023 as he activated this. Over the time when he activated this, the trade relationship there, you look at the imports was at 16.2 million. In comparison to us, it was pretty tiny, a drop in the ocean. And they come to 13.6 million when it comes to the amount of goods that they were exporting to the US. So that relationship there was a deficit situation. But if you travel down the months, you see it drops all the way from 16 to 4.8 million in terms of the imports. And then for the exports, it's 7.5 million. But this is the interesting part. In September, when the last data is available, you actually begin to see that they've switched to a trade surplus, although the total value has dropped. That is also interesting because they begin now to export more than they are importing from the US. And so if the US consumers, of course, aren't interested, why, for example, do we have, yes, quantum is so small, but you have a surplus there for them when they have mostly been in a deficit situation. Again, that's an interesting point to note as we examine the warnings that we've seen over the period. And then we go to a country like Saudi Arabia, a country the US does business with very aggressively, but they have a far more draconian regime than we could ever imagine, because if you see what they have there, it's a de facto situation. We don't have a particular explicit law, but you just don't do it. If a married man engaging in sodomy, you know the consequence. You'll be stoned to death. You will be stoned to death. Non-Muslims engage in sodomy, again, you're facing stoning. And so for them in their case, it is almost a death sentence there. Also, as marriage is also illegal. This is a country with draconian legislation on this matter. But what is the situation with the US? And this is subject of keeping them honest. On the screen here, I really wish you could see this part of the screen because it's important. Because it shows you that story of what is happening there. Because look, the United States is actually importing far more from the Saudi Arabia than Saudi Arabia is importing from them. And that is a very interesting point indeed. Just look at that here, 23.3 billion in terms of US imports from Saudi Arabia compared to 11.4 billion in terms of the US export to Saudi Arabia. That tells you a story, right? So if you take the Virginia Palmer's point, we're kind of far more draconian legislation. Why is it that the US is importing 23.3 billion? In fact, the US is in a deficit situation. In other words, it contradicts Virginia Palmer's point. But the US consumers like Saudi Arabian goods and services. They are, as you see, importing far more from Saudi Arabia than Saudi Arabia is actually taking from them. So what's the situation here? And that's a story about keeping them honest. Is this hypocrisy on the part of the US, as some have suggested, or is just something else at play here that we need to unpack? And my guest will join us for a conversation pretty shortly on this, because, or is it because this is an African country, as one of the MPs had suggested yesterday, that because it's Africa, we are poor, she can throw the threats around? But some facts are facts, right? And that says what it is, because you really want to ask yourself the question. So these U.S. consumers, they don't know the draconian legislations in the U.S. And this data is according to the U.S.'s own United States Census Bureau, telling us a story of what is happening in terms of the trade relationships here, with the U.S. importing from Saudi Arabia 23.3 billion, as against what Saudi Arabia itself, the U.S. is exporting to Saudi Arabia. And that's a very interesting scenario to look at. And then you look at the situation with Ghana when it comes to foreign direct investment. Another case in point that could be threatened, right? It's a case there of 2022 of 1.3 billion. This is something we desperately need. Will this be affected also? These are the facts. Let's bring in my guest after this short break for a really honest conversation. Now that we know what will happen to us according to the US, is the cost too high? Is the price too high for us to pay? Should we soldier on to the passage of this particular bill, or considering our current dire economic circumstance, should we pause?
First off, what even give America the right to be going around threatening people about gay rights? Or why do they even think they are in any position or any human rights position to be dictating to people what is human rights, when we all know they are the worst abuse to human rights? Now, let's talk about Ghana exporting more goods to the US than importing goods from the US. Number one, these companies in Ghana exporting these goods from Ghana are not even Ghanaian-owned companies. They are not even Ghanaians exporting these goods. These are also like foreign companies in Ghana, American-owned companies in Ghana, exploiting the resources, taking these goods outside Ghana, go and add value to them, because the goods we are talking about in Ghana, like being exported to the US, these are raw materials. So they come and exploit these raw materials, take these goods, take them to the US, add value to them, they become value-added goods. And of course, it's going to be like 10 times expensive to import value-added goods from the US than coming to Ghana, taking the raw materials, exporting them to the US. Number two is the diplomatic ties between both countries. Let me make an example. An American will wake up today, tomorrow is in Ghana, because he's eligible to visa on arrival. Of course, he'll be at the airport, pay 200 USD, and he's in the country. He's gonna like sign up for whatever business he's there for, pay the license, and now he can mine or get whatever goods or export whatever goods he wants from Ghana. So it's even easier for him because he can fly into the country, and pay 200 USD at the airport. But for a Ghanaian to fly to the US, it's 10 times difficult because why? A Ghanaian need a visa to the US. And for him to get a visa, he needs an appointment to the embassy. For him to get an appointment, it's going to take time for him to get an appointment because you have to book the appointment and all of that. So you see, it's easier for Americans to come to Ghana, do business, exploit the resources, export them to America. And this is exactly what they want. They don't want Ghanaians to take their own raw materials to the US or do whatever business. They want them to come and get the raw materials, take it outside Ghana, go and add value to them, and make it difficult for Ghanaians to afford it. That is what they want. Let me make an example. We know Ghana is known for gold, yeah? Like, for example, the Ashanti region, like Kumasi. An American company will come to Kumasi, let's just an example of buying gold of 500 USD, 500 American dollar. Pay transport and all of that, take it to the US and add value to it. Now it's no more just a gold, raw gold. Value has added to it. Now it has become gold watch or gold necklace or gold whatsoever. So the 500 USD the American company used to buy this gold is no more 500 USD. Now it's even like 2,000 USD, 3,000 USD. So of course, it's now expensive for a Ghanaian to afford it when the raw material is from Ghana. So not only they are even preventing you to go to America with your own goods, they are also making sure that they're coming to like exploit your own goods, because the goods we're talking about in Ghana, these are all raw materials. They are making sure to come to like exploit these goods, take it outside Ghana, add value to them, and make it even expensive for a Ghanaian businessman to afford it. It's really a shame that Ghana is one of these countries America is like also threatening, considering the history of Ghana, considering the dream, the vision of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. This was what exactly he saw. That's why he said Africans should really unite, like have a free trade zone, like marketing their own raw materials within the continent, because all these right Americans think they have is because of this, because they think they have the right, they think they're even doing a favor by growing their own economy, because most of these goods being exported to America, you are the one helping them. You are the one helping the economy. We all know America is built on other countries. I think it's high time African countries start reconsidering their international relations, especially with these two countries, the US and England, because ask yourself, since after independence, it's almost like 70 years now, but African countries are still struggling economically, and their top partners are these countries, America, the UK. So if you have seen that it's the same struggle, like partnering with the same, just like me doing business with this person, but I see this person is growing. No, I'm doing business with him, he's growing, while I'm still struggling, but I'm the one like growing his business. Like, don't I think it's time to reconsider either like some reform or changing partners? Like, this is what African leaders should really start thinking about, but they are not really there yet. Because why? They are not only that they are allowing Americans and these countries coming to the country exploiting their resources, but they are taking loans from the World Bank and IMF and taking loans from these countries like trap. That is why when you want to fight your freedom now, you want to like free from all these their chains, they start threatening you with all these things, threatening you with aid, threatening you with loans, threatening you with all these things, when at the end of the day, they are not the one doing you favor. You're the one doing them favor. Why do you think America will come in Ghana and start telling them they should do this about human rights? It's not even about human rights. It's because they think they own you. Imagine Ghanaian president flying to the US, telling them how to run their affairs, like how to pass bill in their parliament or whatsoever. It's not even going to be possible, but they are doing this thing because they think they own you. And that's why I think African youth I'm really pushing this agenda of African youth going to politics because we are being woke. Like, it's not the same with these old leaders. We are seeing what is going on. There's awareness, like we are seeing, especially like, Africans that are stay abroad and also like staying in Africa. We have seen the struggle, like this struggle of both sides. This is why I'm still pushing this agenda of African youth going to politics, because we are the one going to save Africa for our kids, for our future, not only for our future, but the future of our kids. Anyways, let me know what you think about the speech of the American ambassador to Ghana, and what do you think about the gay rights bill in Ghana. Till we meet again, my name is Ken, and stay subscribed to my channel if you have not subscribed yet, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.